You mentioned treadmill,
Hmm.
getting caught in that treadmill, spinning on wheels. And one thing I notice is that even yoga can become something that we're spinning our wheels on. I got to get to my yoga class. I got to master this difficult posture. In comparison with um, uh, the course sort of confronts us directly with stop, just stop, just pause.
Stop, drop, and roll.
Right,
Yeah. Stop, drop, and do a shape.
right, right.
Put your legs up on the wall and just take a moment. Yeah. But yeah, there's a meditation in every shape. You don't have to sit cross-legged and have a straight spine. I, none of that is required. If it were, we'd be doomed. None of us, very few of us would have a chance. So I like to say there's a meditation in every shape. And ultimately we come to the mat and we practice, or you, whether it's 3 minutes, maybe you do sit cross-legged and put a candle on and slow down your breath. If 3 minutes is what you have, there's your practice. But then let the essence of it weave its way into every moment of your daily life. Now I realize that life itself is the classroom, and that my meditation and my undoing really never stops. And I'm continually being shown the very things that uh, that are essential and necessary for me to unwind and forgive in my life and in my healing. Yeah,
Right.
that's the repurposing of the world that the course talks about.
Jeff, how many shapes are we talking about in a general practice, or is it more spontaneous?
In each given practice, so I have 30-minute, 45-minute, and 60-minute classes. I teach Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I teach one of each, and then I have playlists that have uh, lots of classes in it, various playlists. They never get harder. They might get a tiny, tiny bit more complex. We might hold a shape a little bit longer, but the idea is not to increase effort in any way. The practice really should just get easier and easier with time as your body becomes more available. So the number of shapes that I could have in any given class range between as few as 3 or 4 to as many as maybe 6 to 10 shapes, primary shapes, in a class, depending on how long the class is. So, and then the really cool thing about this yoga that I like is that when it when we target the joints and the nervous system, the creativity and the variety of the shapes is mind-boggling. There's so many variations on the shapes that make them doable, practical, and beneficial. Whereas when we target the muscles, gosh, it just seems like we end up doing the same poses over and over and over. Um, and that can be very helpful on one's journey. But eventually, we got to drop beneath the muscles to get to the bones and the joints. And what I found is when you start to target the bones and the joints, it becomes a back door into the parasympathetic nervous system. I mean, after the call, if you have a moment, just put your legs here. I'll show you. I think you can sort of see me, right?
Mhm.
I think you can. Here's a shape. We do all kinds of stuff in this shape right here. My my sit bones are about 10 or 12 inches away from the wall. So my legs are a little bit of an angle. Now I'm reversing the effects of gravity on my body. And I can do all kinds of strap work here. I can do work with my hands and my feet upside down, which has countless benefits. Uh, Oh, but I was just going to say, if this is all you do, put your legs up, support your head, put your arms out in a T shape. Sometimes we interlock here, sometimes we come under the bolster like this, and turn your head to one side. Breathe through your nose and use all the sensations that come with this shape. The heels against the wall, the change in blood pressure, the decreased blood pressure in my feet and legs, the increased pressure up into my face, the way the heart has to work just a little bit harder to get the blood up to my feet. All those things just become sensations. And now I practice watching them without any judgment. I might make the arms a little bit more active and spiral out into the fingers. And now I feel the muscular action, but I'm using it to get to the restrictions around the joints. Now I join with that sensation without judgment and let the shape work for me. So that's, there was an example of a couple shapes right there. And I'll often say, if you only have 5 minutes, just put your legs up on the wall and turn your head to the side, and you might even fall asleep, but let it be a meditation.
That is very, you can, it's almost like detoxing as well, right? You're literally,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that legs up, where toxins tend to accumulate often is in the feet and the toes. There's this thing called gout, which is specific description or illness symptom of accumulation of toxins in the feet and toes. So, so when you put your legs up, it facilitates the lymph, the movement of lymph. It the spine now has to adapt to a firm yet flat surface, which actually is a form of extension compared to the way we go through life. It's what I just did there was like a 1 minute long back bend relative to the way I'm sitting now. That's
right.
how we start to think. Little changes where time is working for us can have big ramifications, helpful healing ramifications.
And I think maybe the greatest physical issue that we're faced with right now is inflammation.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
inflammation probably leads to Alzheimer's. It leads to heart disease. Every joint issue that we basically have is due to inflammation. So
Hmm.
basically, what you're offering is an antidote, an effective means of
Yeah.
lessening, decreasing, and maybe even healing completely.
Yeah. So I dedicate a good chapter to exactly what you're talking about. Uh, okay, I know we're coming to the close here, but I'll try to make this very succinct. Most of the time, when you hear about arthritis and joint uh, degeneration and things like that, you'll hear terms like wear and tear, or you have done something in the past that makes my knees or my hips the way they are now. I've worked with so many people over the years. I have not found that to be consistently true. There are, and probably if you think about it, you might know people who have had joint replacements who were not wearing and tearing on themselves. So what is it? It's it's inflammation. To me, arthritis is is a fancy word for nothing more than a toxic environment. So your every articulating joint, whether it's the knee or the hip or the little joints in your spine, they all have a capsule, and the capsule is made of fascia or connective tissue, and it wraps around. Every joint in my finger has this capsule that wraps around it, and it contains the synovial fluid inside. Heard of synovial fluid before? You know what that is? Yeah, it's loaded with nutrients. It fortifies and supplies nutrients to the cartilage inside the joint. It also carries the waste out. because there's a metabolic process going on inside your joint. It doesn't get there's no blood flow in there. So everywhere there's a metabolic process, there's waste. So the waste has to get out. The synovial fluid carries the waste out. It forms the job of blood. And so here's the here's the magic. When you compress a joint, if you just simply make a fist and hold it for 1.5 to 2 minutes, the compression is pushing that fluid through the synovial membrane out into the lymphatic system where it's picked up and cleansed. And that's how simple this practice is. It's not a strength and stretch routine, it's a compress and release. And even if there's arthritis, mild to moderate arthritis, even mild joint degeneration, we can turn that around. I've turned it around in my body. I've seen it happen in countless students. You can turn it around when you take a kind, consistent approach to compress and release. And that's where, going back in our conversation, that's where we learn to get super clear on what healing sensation is and how to sustain it in a shape.
Interesting enough, the compress and release is also an effective means of dealing with blood pressure, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Everything in your body loves compress and release. The contents of your belly, your rib cage. If you think about it, the entire universe is expanding or contracting. There's a compress and release, and it's very, very safe. Whereas stretching, you can definitely overstretch and hurt yourself, and you can overstretch to the point where you're destabilized.
I have.
So,
I have.
yeah, okay. I know a lot of people who have, and so, so I find compress and release to be a very safe and deeply intuitive way to practice.